I'm not gonna lie, today I'm a little nervous, like I haven't been filming in a while, but to step back into it today in podcast world with my brother Lionel,
Absolutely.
it's a blessing, man.
I'm honored.
Yeah, man. I'm great you're here, man. I'm great to have you today. Father's Love is welcome back, everybody. It is, yeah, man. It's gonna be a real time because I know that this is a very authentic person and very transparent person, and he got a lot of wisdom. Like, bro's smart. Yeah, he's smart.
No, man.
Yeah, bro's smart. Yeah. You just dropped a couple words in our text messages where low key I had to Google them.
Oh.
yeah, I ain't gonna hold you up. But yeah, so no, man, I'm glad you're here today.
Appreciate it. I'm honored to be here and humble, honestly. So
that's real.
Nervous myself is where the conversation is, but nonetheless, like you said, I'm here to serve. So
yeah, man, I appreciate it. I know we met through Contessa. I was in a really good meeting.
Actually,
we met before that.
Yeah,
we met before that. You came to one of my fatherhood meetings.
Yep, and you was late.
I wasn't late. I don't think was I.
You was late. You came on like near to like the tail end.
No. What happened? I thought you had the wrong Zoom link. Didn't you have like the wrong link?
No, I was there from the beginning.
Okay.
On that one.
He's probably right. Yeah, I'm not saying I wasn't. All right, I was late, everybody. So I was late to the Zoom meeting, and I came in. Actually, I do remember. I was on, and I got off, and when I came back, you were on. All right, maybe I wasn't on.
Okay.
But I remember getting on.
I'm not going to
I remember getting on, and you were, I was like, you was dropping a lot of gems. I'm like, man, who is this brother? Like, I know a lot of people in Muskegon not being from here, and I know the ones who got the juice. I ain't gonna hold you. Like, I know the ones who have a lot of wisdom. I've been able to connect with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind that I hadn't connected. I'm like, how? Where is this brother came from? So
yeah, glory to God.
Yeah. And you're originally from Muskegon?
Yeah, I'm originally from Muskegon, but I hadn't, when you were moving and shaking, I wasn't living here at the time.
Okay.
So I was in Atlanta, Memphis.
Dope.
And then ended up coming, Detroit, Atlanta, Memphis, and coming back here.
That's dope. Yeah, man. And yeah, we got to connect over some fatherhood stuff. And then we were in the Zoom, and you lost the link after that or something. You can't find the link.
Yeah, I misplaced the link, and I had been wanting to get back on, but I didn't have the link. So
you didn't have the link. So then I was in a meeting at work, and all these Zoom meetings. I can't even tell you which one it was, but
doula.
It was a. All right, bro. It was a doula.
You want to go see new?
I thought it was coming together for racial understanding, but it could have been doula. Allison was there, and I'm on 2 meetings with her.
Yeah.
So if it
and
had
she's
to be one
over
or
the
two.
doulas, so.
All right, I was there trying to help my brothers.
You sound transparent. So for those of you who don't know, doulas are like midwives. And so they help women through pregnancy, but I believe that they just aren't medically certified like midwives are. So,
yeah, doulas, man. Shout out to doulas.
Yeah.
I in my defense, I have to keep defending myself.
No, you don't. I don't know why you feel like you do.
I was just had a baby, or my wife was pregnant, so I was getting ready to have a baby, and that's where the whole partnership.
You good.
I don't know why I was in that group. I'm going to tell you the truth. But I was there, met with Contessa. She said, hey, I can just tell that you would really connect. She even told me who you were. She said, I got somebody I wanted to connect you with. I think she said in the meeting. And then we emailed, and I got connected with you again. And we set up a Zoom to check in. And you were late to that Zoom, actually.
So, actually, Norm missed the first Zoom meeting that we scheduled. You had to cancel it.
I had to cancel.
And it took you a month.
This brother got the Carfax. Okay.
Right.
All right,
okay.
I quit.
Yeah, all right.
Tap. So we met. We got to connect. And we had a really good conversation. We had a good conversation. I think we met up. But when it came full circle, like, I'm like, all right, this is somebody I really can see, like, us building a relationship. is recently when we were at the One M for Christ event, and I seen you with Issa, who is.
So Issa is my daughter, not biological, but I've been there since she was born. So there's nothing that you could say that would tell me that she isn't.
Yeah.
So I love her just as if she was, and so, but biologically she's my girlfriend's daughter.
Man, yeah.
Contessa's.
Yeah, I didn't know that you've been there so long, but when I seen you guys together, it was powerful just to see the connection and, me having a blended family and to see someone stepping in that role and that fatherhood role, but to see how comfortable and how comforting you were to her. Like, it was like, it blew my mind. It blew my mind. I work with a lot of different fathers, and I see a lot of different blended families. I see a lot of bonus fathers, stepfathers, whatever you want to call, but I see them in that role. And to see how comfortable Issa was with you and how the love there, it shocked me. Do you remember the first time you met Issa?
Yeah, I do remember the first time that I met Issa. And even in you saying, going back to move forward, even what you were just saying, sometimes I miss that. I don't. People always say that her and I have a great connection, but being in it sometimes, it's like, really? Because you're not always on that same. You're so consumed with the work and what you're doing, and not being the biological father, just wanting to be intentional and strengthening that relationship. So focused on that you miss what you've already created between the two of you. And so I remember the first time that I met Issa, it was if I'm being it was just a lot of different emotions and feelings. I definitely wasn't where I was now.
Okay.
If I'm being honest, it was like, dang, like, you cutting into the time that I'm gonna be able to spend with Contessa. But because I value Contessa and I just honored her so much, I was willing to take on that responsibility. And just understanding the importance of, I had my father in my life, and he raised my sister, and that wasn't his biological daughter. So having that example, and then having that example in my life just kind of helped me understand the magnitude. So it was something where I had to kind of go back and say, is this a relationship that I want to pursue? Are these relationships that I want to pursue? Because it isn't just one that you're pursuing. No. And then not only that, I wasn't even living in Michigan at the time. So how do you develop that relationship being so far apart?
Man, that makes sense. And yeah, I know there's been a gap from when you met her to where you guys are now. And yeah, I know what it's like you hear things from other people as your role as a father, but I think working with so many fathers, it wasn't necessarily you, it was me seeing her, even how comfortable and how loving she was. And it was like she felt safe. She felt super safe. Yeah. And that is one of the most important things for a relationship with your child, is that they feel safe. And yeah, it just shocked me. Excuse me. So I can hear what you're saying and saying what it felt like for you in the role. Do you know, like, what were some of the fears and barriers in getting to where you guys are now, I guess?
Yeah. How long is the relationship with me and Contessa gonna last? Building that bond, and then just allowing it to be torn apart if Tess and I wouldn't work out. I think, right, that's something that just now I've probably got on the top side of, and just deciding to love regardless, right? Just like not allowing fear, because we just talked about not allowing fear to be a dictator as to how I move, and that has even increased or enhanced our relationship. So that was probably the biggest one. How much say so am I gonna have in raising her, because she isn't my daughter, and her father was still around, and so then what was that relationship gonna be like, or what is the relationship currently like? And then that in itself was a whole experience as well too. So I would say off the top, these were some of the things that kind of came to mind, because as men, whether we like to admit it or not, we're territorial, right? And so having to take care of a child that isn't necessarily yours is an ego and a pride sense that you have to overcome, right? Because in the old days, when they used to conquer the lands, what they would do, what would they do? They would kill the children, kill the older women, and then take the woman and then make new. So I mean, that's like human instinct has been inbred in us throughout centuries, and so overcoming those natural instincts that you have, it's like, man. But honest, like I said, if I'm being transparent, these were some of the things that I had to work through. Hearing her, developing a relationship, and hearing her call another man dad. All of that. Working through that. So a lot of self and pride and ego.
Yeah, that makes sense. Having a blended family, some of the same things that you guys had to go through, or go through, and we've experienced as well, of just trying to roles with other parents and where that fit in, and a lot of times, even in what you're saying of how much the other side and the other family, or my daughter's mom, how much of that's the focus sometimes in our relationship, and how, I don't know, it just, when you said it, I could just really hear a lot of things that my wife says, the struggles, and that I sometimes don't, like I said, haven't been as open in hearing of how big it is to step into that space.
Yeah, right. It's very important. Being on the other side is, when we were discussing earlier, it's just like, how valued is my opinion, and learning what is okay and what's not okay. But I think that's why it's so important to have conversations. Tess and I had conversations in the beginning. And for me, I had boundaries. Like, if we're going to be working toward marriage, if that, that's what this relationship is about. Otherwise, we don't need to be together. And so if that is not our goal, but an objective of ours, then how do we pursue that intentionally? And so to do that, this is kind of what I would need to see in our relationship, and what I'm requiring. So I would like to be able to have a say in this, or I would like to be able to have a say in this, or is it okay for me to have a say in this? If not, let's talk about it. And then, okay, we talked about it, you're right on that one. And so I think sometimes in conversations that I've had with other men that have taken on the responsibility of being a dad for children that are not theirs, is that they miss that conversational piece. And then if they're having that conversation, they're not being honest and transparent as to what they want, what they would like their role to be, and then being non-negotiable about it.
Parenting is that space where we are very protective. We are very protective. And it's almost our child, there gets some blurred lines where there are, like, I trust my child. I still, whenever I don't trust you, whenever we're at a little opposite, this is what I cling to.
Ooh, that's good.
It's just, and I know that role, that being in that space of my wife doing things with my daughter, and I sometimes just have to go in the other room, because it's that fear. It's that fear. It's that fear. And when you have fear, you try to control something. And I know what that's like. So hearing you.
So how have you worked through that?
Oh, it is a surrenderous thing. It is, I have to surrender it. I can't, it's a God thing. There is no way that my natural, my flesh all the time is clean. Man, especially, man, I shared it on this podcast. I've had to battle a lot of shame in having a blended family. And it showed up so much in having now having a baby with my wife, right? Because it's this constant fear of now my daughter's going to be overshadowed. We were already, like, you're already worked through so many barriers as trying to blend my daughter and now my wife, and trying to do those, my biological daughter and my wife, and trying to do that. But now it's a space where everything that she wanted within my daughter, she now has biologically. And that was a fear for mine, was like, now my daughter's going to be overshadowed. Now I'm trying to do all these daddy-daughter days. Now, anytime I would have my newborn, right? If people would, come up, family members would be like, oh my gosh, your daughter is so cute. I'm like, yeah, but did you see my oldest daughter? Oh, I had some rejection. I rejected, man, I had some rejection towards my biological daughter. She's only one now. I mean, now it's in a totally different place, but it took time because of the fear that I had developed of my biological daughter now being dismissed or pushed away. And it was only something that I didn't have to pray about it. I constantly continue to have to pray. And it's tough, bro. It is so tough because you already feel like you failed in that sense. You do. Like, this, now especially in my sense, my biological daughter, Kennedy, she goes from home to home, not home to home. But now I have my daughter, who now is so full of love, who gets to see me every night, who gets to love on me. Already that just sounds like a recipe for feeling left out, or words, like that breeding ground. So it's something that I can't do. All the love, all the daddy-daughter dates can't feel some of the things that my daughter may be experiencing. But I have to surrender that to God and the outcome, and that He fills all voids, and that that His will is done in it. So it has been one of the hardest things that I've had to work through.
That's amazing. And piggyback question. So do you have conversations with your daughter to kind of see how she feels about things? So
I do. And the crazy thing about fear is she was more she was more excited and accepted about having this, my youngest daughter, Gia, but because of my fears, I blocked that out. You know what I mean? So even times of saying, all right, you guys got to share rooms. Like, even it was a big art, like, it went down in my house over, now my oldest daughter is now sharing a room with my youngest daughter, because I'm like, now she's going to come home and now she got to share a room. Now this is really going to show her that she's fading out. It was things like that. But talking to my daughter and having these conversations with her, and having these allowing her in the process of, all right, let's help set up your room together with your sister, showed that she was more excited about it. She was open. She couldn't wait for it. But a lot of my fears went and distorted my view. And then it went to this protection thing, which created some resentment, not only between my wife and myself, but my wife and my oldest daughter. But it was resentment that I was creating in my covering, in my protection, and in my fears, or covering and protecting.
Yeah. I think that's so important because, right, like when you mentioned earlier, you tend to cling when that fear comes to your child, but you all don't understand the strain that causes on the relationship with the other person. And then it makes that relationship awkward. But not only that, when there is confrontation between the two of you, or now that child is put in the position as to what side do they need to be on, or who do they comfort. And so sometimes they're trying to comfort this person, and sometimes they're trying to comfort this person. And so we have to be so mindful of that. But even in that, right, it helps me provide more grace in that, because there is a relinquishing of you're relinquishing this being that you've created, right, that you've invested into another person. So understanding the different things that kind of go through you all's mind is something that I've just never, unfortunately, given a lot of thought to, because sometimes you're just so consumed with what you're experiencing that we disregard what other people are feeling.
It's a grace on both ends. It's new, it's tough, and but when it's surrendered to God, it's still will bear fruit. I really believe that. So we've had some. I mean, when it's surrendered and when I'm trusting Him, it is something that I could never do as far as like the outcome and the fruits that come from it, and the love, and it's a blessing to see. But it takes a place of daily surrender. How has Issa made you a better man?
Man, on so many levels, she has just kids in general, like not even if they're not yours or if you have your own children, right? So she's made me more patient. She's helped me to be more understanding. She's helped me to be more tender, you know, and so, but she's also helped me understand that I need to have more discipline in my life because what Tess and I's one of the things that we're working on is just understanding that we're not raising a little girl, we're raising a woman.
True.
And so we want to be able to prepare her to be able to interact with people, to be able to, when I don't like to think about it, but one day, God willing, she'll be married. And so to be able to be, you know, a good wife, you know, and be able to love her husband appropriately. And so even my love as to how I love Contessa has had to become greater because I want to be an example, right? So she's helped me in my faith because boundaries have had to be created. Because I want her to say, I don't want her to be able to say, well, you and mommy did A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And I don't want to be that parent that says, well, do what I tell you to do. You know what I mean?
That's it, yeah.
So I want to be able to be an example as to how a man who truly loves a woman treats a woman.
So good.
So she's just helped me level up in so many different ways. God just has a way of doing things, and he's definitely utilized her as a tool to help me, show me a lot of different things as to how to reflect as to how I was moving just wasn't proper, you know. And so it's just that self is just really, that self can, man, that pride and that ego. But when it comes to children, we're more prone to let it go. We're more prone to be gracious with them. But like I said, if I'm being an example, I have to extend that same grace to Contessa. And so a lot of times I have to eat it. It's like, okay, I got to do better. You know, so.
That's good. That's good. And I think you said something important, like we sometimes fail to realize of how much how we treat their moms plays an effect on what they look for in a man, what they see love is. And yeah, that's something that I always try to keep in mind. But it is tough. It is tough. I think sometimes in relationships like kids, it's been easier for me to give grace. But like I was saying earlier, you know, like understanding that sometimes, I don't know, it's easier to give kids grace versus it is adults to me. And that's, you know, that's not what God says it is to look like, you know, it's to give everyone grace and love. And when you said that, it just reminds me of just how much more to give my wife grace in this process. And
and be examples, right? Because I think it would have been healthy for me to see, I see my parents disagree growing up, but how do you have constructive conversations or constructive arguments and disagreements? And so even when Tess and I have disagreements and we may be in the car, still being mindful that she's there. And so as a man, I'm not, regardless of how whatever happens or whatever said, as a man, I still need to be able to conduct my way or myself in a way that she understands that, okay, even when when I'm older, my dad never did that was a healthy relationship, and my dad never did this, he never did this, he never did this, he never did this. And so she's trying to help her develop her boundaries and understand like what's okay and what's not okay. So it's just,
I've been on the other end of that, you know. We've had to go through that and not handling it.
I don't always get it right.
Oh yeah, but,
so let me be clear.
I get what you're saying. But I'm talking about the toxicity that was in my wife and I's marriage and relationship. And unfortunately, my daughter's seen things that she shouldn't have to see and experience things. And on the other end of that, the importance is to sit back down with them and to admit that your fault's in it, and talk about forgiveness and talking about our responsibility and what I'm called to do as a husband, when things are like this and what you're called to do as a wife. So we've had to do a lot of those round table talks with my daughter of what that looks like. And it's been beneficial because in my household, it was the opposite. We never seen conflict.
Yeah.
Never seen conflict. So because I never seen conflict, whenever there was conflict, it was dismissing. We don't do that here. What are you doing? Yeah. What are you yelling? Like, what? Don't you talk to me? Like, I didn't know how to address it. It was a lot of dismissiveness, which created more resentment. And one thing we try to do with my oldest daughter is to sit down with her and to talk through conflict. Or if even something could be, oh my gosh, we were arguing maybe a few months, that was like 6 months ago. And my wife said something about me that I know that my daughter heard in the other room. And we had to sit down and talk with my daughter through it. But most importantly, the thing that my wife was saying that I did in the past, it was true. It was true. And then that required a whole nother layer of saying, although people have done things in the past, about forgiving them and then letting that be it and not bringing those things back up in that manner. I mean, it was a full sermon and a full life lesson that my daughter would have never got if we didn't learn how to sit down and to address conflict together.
Right, because we grow up, like you said, being sent into the other room. Now, I'm an advocate for some conversations. I need to be there for. But if you have some of the spats that we all have, it's healthy for them to kind of be able to absorb some of that, as long as you're able to do it in a healthy way. So I think that's awesome that you're able to bring it full circle, because a lot of people don't do that, and so when we grow up, we don't know how to handle it.
We don't.
So like you said, we dismiss it. Which is unhealthy.
All right. So okay. All right, man. I got so many gems today, man. Like things that I needed to share, things that I definitely needed to hear, and I know other people need to hear who are stepping into your role. If there was someone new who is now dating and considering being in a serious relationship with someone with a child, what would be some tips or something that you would like to share with him to prepare for what he's going to walk into, he or she?
Yeah, I would say that you need to, one, assess the situation and see what the relationship is like between the mother and the father, and then make a decision. Is this something that you're willing to commit to? Because now you're going to be, depending on the relationship, you may be the sole representation for what a man is, and they will mentally develop and behaviorally, I don't even know if that's a word.
Sound right. I'll Google it later.
All right, it probably isn't, but they will develop the understanding based off of how you move. Their perspective will be shaped off of the environment that you create. So, and then the other thing that I would say is to be an advocate for the father.
Yeah.
You know, the relationship may not be the best between the mom and the dad, but it is so important for fathers to be in the lives of their children. And so I won't know it's dependent on the relationship, but if you can, definitely be an advocate. Don't try to exclude him from the picture. Do whatever you can to try to get him in the picture more so, and then just have a healthy relationship between the two of you, obviously establishing boundaries. Have a conversation with the mom and establish boundaries in your relationship, so that you know what's acceptable, what isn't acceptable. And then when you're creating those boundaries, make sure that you're advocating for yourself and putting in what it is that you really want and having your non-negotiables. And then if that isn't able to be put in there, then you have to kind of respect where that mom is at. But I think you should also part ways, because what happens is you get married and now you think that things should change, but you've already established what's acceptable and what isn't acceptable. So it's kind of hard to have that conversation. You can, and people do it, but just best case scenario. So those are just some of the things that I would say is just the number one thing is just making sure that you're willing to commit, because and that you're working toward marriage. Don't, you know what I'm saying? Don't just try to have a one night stand or a couple of months. It's not fair to the children. It's not fair to the mom either, but you just kind of have to be mindful. Like, you're shaping people's beliefs, their foundational principles, And so I always say it is so much bigger than you. It's always bigger than you. And just be mindful of that when you're interacting with a woman who has children or a child.
Wow. Message. Man, bro, I appreciate the words of wisdom again. New fathers, men who are stepping into relationships. That's great advice. That's great advice. One thing that I'm just going to take a little further, one thing that I had to do too, or didn't do, is when my wife and I were in a serious relationship, I didn't have a good setup for her to transition into now a blended family. I didn't have the healthy boundaries. There wasn't good communication. Things were all over the place, which created more, it creates more of a burden, not only for the person stepping in for it or you, but for the child.
Yeah.
It did. So that's one of my biggest pieces of advice is to do your best to already have healthy boundaries, have healthy communication, have good pickup and drop off time. So you are setting your child and the new person who's stepping in up for what you hope to be the best case scenario.
Yeah, and hopefully you've worked on yourself. If not, you should not be that's prerequisite, right? In college you always have prerequisites before you take that next level. You definitely, if you're going to be in a relationship with a woman who has a child, need to make sure that you have some boundaries and you've worked on yourself. I'm not saying you have to be all the way put together, because I definitely am still working on getting there, but you need to have some skin in the game, and then also have you a support group or a group of guys that can hold you accountable, not ones that just not yes men, but some guys that will hold you accountable for being in this relationship and hold you accountable for how you say you walk your life, how you say you live your life, that you can kind of go to and get some wisdom. I have a group of married men, fathers that pour into me, that I'm grateful to have in my life, that give me wise counsel when I'm not doing things right, and even when I'm doing things wrong, they give me. They give me counsel, but that's important as well. That
is not having people to say yes to everything that you're going through, or only saying how the other person is wrong. That's a red flag. If the people you calling, if all they got to say is agree with you and say, "Oh, bro, forget her then. Forget them kids," it's a problem. I'm trying to tell you. So, once again, I hope this blesses whoever hears this. This is a father's love, and we back. Shout out to Lucas.
Yeah.
All right, man. Take care, y'all. Tune in, like, subscribe, share, all of that. Take care. See y'all later.